The ultimate of ironies here, Moody's came out over the weekend or was it this morning, and basically called for the complete abolition of the debt ceiling, that it is too dangerous for America to have a debt ceiling. So according to Moody's, the threat to America is not that we're taking on too much debt, but that we might stop, that we're not going to take on enough. Although certainly the way you hear politicians talk about how big a catastrophe would be for us if we don't raise the debt ceiling, well, then that does argue for eliminating the ceiling altogether. But you know what? There isn't a single congressman who would want to vote for that, because that vote would come back to haunt them. So nobody wants to vote to take away the debt ceiling, but everybody really wants to vote to raise it. And in the end, they will. Although they might not. They don't want to vote to raise it. They want it to go up. They just want the other party to vote to raise it. In fact, there's a plan out there right now on the Republican side to basically give President Obama the unilateral authority to raise the debt ceiling and then require a veto to stop him. So in other words, put all the onus on President Obama to just sign the increases without any of the Republicans in Congress having to sign on to it. Now, I think that this is maybe it's good politics for the Republicans to try to put the president in a position of being the one that has to raise the debt ceiling. But it's certainly not good for the U.S. economy. And whether or not it ends up being good politics in the end, we have to see, because maybe some people will see through this charade, because the Republicans basically punted the issue over to Obama rather than holding his feet to the fire, rather than forcing a cut in government spending. And let's examine what Moody's is saying. Moody's is saying that the best thing that we can do for the U.S.'s credit rating is to let it borrow unlimited amounts of money. I mean, think about how short-sighted Moody's is, because in Moody's opinion, the only risk to U.S. creditors is that the government can't go deeper into debt. They completely miss the mark of inflation and purchasing power. What Moody's is saying is allow unlimited debt, even if it produces runaway inflation, which destroys the value of the dollar. The only way to preserve the value of the dollar, and therefore the real value of U.S. bonds, is to limit the ability of Congress to borrow money. If you do what Moody's says, then Moody's should immediately downgrade U.S. government debt to junk, because that's exactly what they would have turned it into if you take off any possible break on reckless government spending. But the fact that Moody's can make such an asinine statement shows you, the truth behind that organization, and that's why Moody's was putting AAA ratings on mortgage-backed securities that went to zero, because that's about how much credibility Moody's has in the ratings world, and that's zero.